Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
My name is Todd Goldfinger, and here are today's top headlines. Thank you for watching. The officer who pulled Tyree Nichols from his car before police fatally beat him never explained why he was being stopped. Newly released documents show, and emerging reports from Memphis residents suggest that was common. The Memphis Police Department blasted Demetrius Haley and 4 other officers as blatantly unprofessional and asked that they be stripped of the ability to work as police for their role in the January 7th beating, according to documents released Tuesday by the Tennessee Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission. They also include revelations that Haley took photographs of Nichols as he lay propped against a police car, then sent the photos to other officers and a female acquaintance. Nichols died 3 days later, the latest police killing to prompt nationwide protests and an intense public conversation about how police treat black residents. The 5 officers, Haley Desmond Mills Jr., Tadarius Bean, Justin Smith, and Emmett Martin III, have been fired and charged with second-degree murder. The new documents offer the most detailed account to date of those officers' actions. Their attorneys have not commented to the Associated Press about the documents. Next news. It was a stunning revelation. One of the officers involved in the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols took a cell phone photo of the bloodied and handcuffed man and shared it with 5 other people. The disclosure was part of the Memphis Police Department's request to the state that the 5 former officers charged with murder in Nichols' death be decertified. But the officer's statement about sharing the photo will likely never be seen by a jury. So-called Garrity statements, or disclosures made by police officers during internal investigations under the threat of termination if they stay silent, have been viewed by courts as compelled and therefore cannot be used in criminal court. 6 officers already have been fired and 1 more has been relieved of duty after Nichols was pulled over for an alleged traffic violation and beaten by police. 6 others could receive administrative discipline, officials disclosed, without providing any details. Prosecutors say the January 7th arrest, which was captured on police video cameras, led to Nichols' death 3 days later. Here's a look at Garrity's statements and other aspects of internal police investigations into misconduct the public rarely sees. When a police officer is accused of misconduct, internal police investigators who are trying to figure out what happened often take statements from the accused officers or witnesses. Officers, like everyone, have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and can't be forced to fess up to potential misconduct just to have those statements later used against them in a criminal case. Next news. Evacuated residents can return to the Ohio village where crews burned toxic chemicals after a train derailed 5 days ago near the Pennsylvania state line, now that monitors show no dangerous levels in the air, authorities said Wednesday. Around-the-clock testing inside and outside the evacuation zone around the village of East Palestine and Silver of Pennsylvania showed the air had returned to normal levels that would have been seen before the derailment, said James Justice of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Hundreds and hundreds of data points we've collected over the time show the air quality is safe, he said. Residents were ordered to evacuate when authorities decided on Monday to release and burn 5 burn tankers filled with vinyl chloride, sending hydrogen chloride and the toxic gas phosgene into the air. Monitors did detect toxins in the air during the controlled burn at the derailment site, but other samples outside that area did not, Justice said. The village's mayor expressed relief that the evacuation had been lifted. We know everybody's frustrated. Everybody wants to be in their homes. We did the best we can, said Mayor Trent Conaway. The number one goal is public safety, and we can accomplish that. Nobody was injured, nobody died. He credited the village's part-time firefighters and their quick response to the derailment for saving the town. Some residents have said they were worried about returning even if authorities say it's okay to go home, despite reassurances from officials. It's unlikely, though, Justice said, that there would be any dangerous levels of toxins inside any homes or businesses based on readings from air monitors around the community. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine said, some residents may want to wait until their homes are checked. Rail operator Norfolk Southern Railway said it would provide testing and continue to operate its Family Assistance Center for the foreseeable future. Next news. The fiery derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals, sending huge plume of smoke into the air and forcing residents of a small Ohio town to evacuate, has highlighted the potentially disastrous consequences of train accidents and raised questions about railroad safety. The railroad industry is generally regarded as the safest option for most goods, and federal data show accidents involving hazardous materials are exceedingly rare. But with rails crossing through the heart of nearly every city and town nationwide, even one hazardous materials accident could be disastrous, especially in a populated area. Rail unions believe the industry has gotten riskier in recent years after widespread job cuts left workers spread thin. It raises all kinds of questions, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine told Fox and Friends this week when he was asked whether hazardous materials are too dangerous to transport by rail. We've seen it up close and personal the last few days, DeWine said. This is a big, big deal. About half of the 4,800 residents in the eastern Ohio town of East Palestine and those in the surrounding area, including parts of Pennsylvania, had to evacuate as officials monitored air and water quality following a controlled burn of chemicals released from damaged tank cars. The evacuation order was lifted Wednesday after the air was deemed safe. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Millennium TV 24 News on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Horizon Satellite, Samsung, and LG Smart TVs. Don't miss today's America, Editorial Today, and Global Democracy with host Fader Nir. Top of the Morning with host Abdul Ali. The Tri-State News Update with host Anthony Manzanet. And the Millennium News Hour with host Tanziba Norain. Millennium TV 24 News, news you need to know.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update in English. Here's the continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. A broadcast reporter was pushed to the ground, handcuffed, and arrested for trespassing Wednesday while covering a news conference about the derailment of a train carrying toxic chemicals in Ohio. News Nation posted video of correspondent Evan Lambert being arrested in the gymnasium of an elementary school in East Palestine where Governor Mike DeWine was giving an update about the accident. Lambert was held for about 5 hours before being released from jail, News Nation reported. I'm doing fine right now. It's been an extremely long day, Lambert said after his release. No journalist expects to be arrested when you're doing your job, and I think that's really important that that doesn't happen in our country. End quotes. At the end of his news conference, DeWine said he didn't authorize the arrest and reporters have every right to report during briefings. If someone was stopped from doing that or told they could not do that, that was wrong, DeWine said. A following statement from the governor's office said DeWine didn't see the incident because a bank of cameras blocked his view, but he did hear a disagreement toward the back of the gymnasium. DeWine has always respected the media's right to report live before reporting and after his press briefings, end quotes. The statement said. Mike Viquera, News Nation's Washington bureau chief, called the arrest an infuriating violation of the First Amendment. The Washington, D.C. based Lambert could still face charges of disorderly conduct and criminal trespassing, News Nation said. Next news. With an eye toward the 2024 campaign, President Joe Biden on Thursday ventures to Florida, a state defined by its growing retiree population and status as the unofficial headquarters of the modern-day Republican Party. The president sees a chance to use Social Security and Medicare to drive a wedge between GOP lawmakers and their base of older voters who rely on these government programs for income and health insurance. President Biden is trying to lay the groundwork for an unexpected re-election campaign announcement this spring. After delivering his State of the Union address on Tuesday, President Biden on Wednesday went to Wisconsin, another political battleground, where he said he would block any attempts to slash Social Security and Medicare benefits. In quotes, all of you have been paying into the system every single paycheck you've had since you started working, President Biden said. These benefits belong to you, the American worker. You earned it. And I will not allow anyone to cut them. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Period. End quotes. Leading Republican lawmakers insist that spending cuts to Social Security and Medicare are off the table with regard to reaching a deal to increase the government's legal borrowing authority. But enough prominent Republicans have broached the subject that President Biden sees as a political opportunity. During the State of the Union address, GOP lawmakers jeered when President Biden referenced a proposal by Senator Rick Scott, Republican from Florida, to require that the programs be reauthorized every 5 years. The president seized on the impromptu moment, urging Republicans and Democrats alike to pledge to avoid cuts to income and health insurance programs. Next news. A Texas man pleaded guilty Wednesday to federal hate crime and weapons charges in the racist attack at an El Paso Walmart in 2019, which prosecutors say was preceded by the gunman posting an online screed that warned of a Hispanic invasion. Patrick Cruzius, 24, showed little emotion while shackled in an El Paso courtroom just a few miles from the store where he was accused of killing 23 people, including citizens of Mexico, in what remains one of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history. Sentencing is not scheduled until later this year, but the U.S. government had previously announced it wouldn't seek the death penalty. Crusius waived most of his rights to appeal on a total of 90 federal charges, which U.S. District Judge David Guardarrama said would each carry a life sentence. "I plead guilty," he said. Crusius had originally pleaded not guilty before federal prosecutors took the death penalty off the table. He could still receive the death penalty, however, under separate state capital murder charges in Texas, although it remains unclear when that case might go to trial. Albert Hernandez, whose sister and brother-in-law were killed in the attack, was one of the about 40 people with close ties to the victims in the court gallery. He called Crusius a coward who was trying to save his own skin by pleading guilty in the federal court. Next news. A thirst for rare bottles of bourbon appears to set to cost the executive director and other top officials of Oregon's liquor and marijuana regulating agency their jobs. An internal investigation by the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission, obtained by the Associated Press via a public records request Wednesday, concluded that Executive Director Steve Marks and 5 other agency officials had diverted sought-after bourbons, including Pappy Van Winkle's 23-year-old whiskey, for their personal use. The officials were paying for the whiskey, which can cost thousands of dollars a bottle, but they had used their knowledge and connections at the commission to obtain them, and consequently deprived members of the public of the spendy booze, the investigation said. And that violated Oregon statutes, including one that prohibits public officials from using confidential information for personal gain. The commission's investigation said. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek on Wednesday asked the agency's a board of commissioners to remove Marks and the others implicated officials, alleging they, in quotes, abused their position for personal gain. This behavior is wholly unacceptable. I will not tolerate wrongful violations of our government ethics laws, Kotek said in her letter to the Board of Commissioners. In his responses to questions from the investigator, Marks denied that he had violated Oregon ethics laws and state policy. However, he acknowledged that he had received preferential treatment to some extent in obtaining the whiskey as a commission employee. Marks and the other officials said they never resold the whiskeys they obtained. This incident underlines the importance of having public accountability, said agency spokesperson Mark Pettinger. The OLCC will need to work on rebuilding and restoring our public trust and adhere to Oregon's ethics laws, end quote. We're going to take a short break from the daily global English news of Millennium News TV 24/7. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Millennium TV 24 News on Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Horizon Satellite, Samsung, and LG Smart TVs. Don't miss today's America, Editorial Today, and Global Democracy with host Fader Nira. Top of the Morning with host Abdul Ali. The Tri-State News Update with host Anthony Manzanet. And the Millennium News Hour with host Tanziba Norain. Millennium TV 24 News, news you need to know.
Hello and welcome back to Millennium News TV 24/7 Global News Update in English. Here's a continuation of today's top stories. Thank you for being with us. President Joe Biden's calls in his State of the Union speech for strong criminal penalties in response to soaring deaths linked to the potent opioid fentanyl are being rebuked by harm reduction advocates who say that approach could make the problem worse, even as some in Congress jeered the comments and blamed the Democrats' border policies for deepening the crisis. The reactions laid bare how preventing drug deaths touches on deep political, practical, and philosophical differences, even in addressing an unrelenting U.S. overdose crisis connected to more than 100,000 deaths a year. After introducing a New Hampshire father whose 20-year-old daughter died 8 years ago from a fentanyl overdose, President Biden laid out a grim statistic. Fentanyl is killing more than 70,000 Americans a year. End quotes. A few lawmakers called out, "It's the border." The voice of one Representative Andy Ogles, a Tennessee Republican, rang out clearly, "It's your fault." President Biden paused, smirked, and went on laying out his approach for dealing with the crisis, including calling for inspecting more packages and cargo coming into the country. One phrase in particular, strong penalties to crack down on fentanyl trafficking, drew applause in the House chamber, but criticism from harm reduction advocates working to contain the crisis. Next news. Burt Bacharach, the singularly gifted and popular composer and Oscar winner who delighted millions with the quirky arrangements and unforgettable melodies of Walk On By, Do You Know the Way to San Jose, and dozens of other hits, has died at 94. Burt Bacharach died Wednesday at home in Los Angeles of natural causes, publicist Tina Browson said Thursday. Over the past 70 years, only Lennon-McCartney, Carole King, and a handful of others rivaled his genius for instantly catchy songs that remained performed, played, and hummed long after they were written. He had a run of top 10 hits from the 1950s into the 21st century, and his music was heard everywhere, from movie soundtracks and radios to home stereo systems and iPods. Whether Alfie and I Say a Little Prayer, or I'll Never Fall in Love Again and This Guy's in Love with You. Dionne Warwick was his favorite interpreter, but Bacharach, usually in tandem with lyricist Hal David, also created prime material for Aretha Franklin, Dusty Springfield, Tom Jones, and many others. Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and Frank Sinatra were among the countless artists who covered his songs, with more recent performers who sung or sampled him, including White Stripes, Twista, and Ashanti. Walk On By alone was covered by everyone from Warwick and Isaac Hayes to the British punk band The Stranglers and Cyndi Lauper. Burt Bacharach was both an innovator and a throwback, and his career seemed to run parallel to the rock era. He grew up on jazz and classical music and had little taste for rock when he was breaking into the business in the 1950s. His sensibility often seemed more aligned with Tin Pan Alley than with Bob Dylan, John Lennon, and other writers who later emerged. But rock composers appreciated the depth of his seemingly old-fashioned sensibility. Next news. Kevin Durant's time in Brooklyn ended early Thursday when the Nets agreed to trade him to the Phoenix Suns. A person with knowledge of the details said, "The Suns will send Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, four first-round picks, and additional draft compensation to the Nets for the 13th time All-Star. The Suns also received forward T.J. Warren in the deal, the person told the Associated Press, on condition of anonymity, because the trade is not yet official. It was first reported by ESPN. The 34-year-old Durant is still playing at an elite level, averaging nearly 30 points per game this season. He asked for a trade last summer, and the Suns were interested and finally got him before Thursday's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time trade deadline. He is recovering from a sprained knee ligament, and when he returns, it will be to a Phoenix lineup that suddenly could be one of the best in the Western Conference. Durant was moved just days after the Nets traded Kyrie Irving from Dallas, a stunningly fast end to the superstar era in Brooklyn. James Harden was traded at last year's deadline, leaving the Nets with little to show for the brief time they had, the big three together. Now it's the Suns with a top collection of talent, with Durant joining Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton. The trade comes just hours after new Suns majority owner Matt Ishbia was introduced in Phoenix. The self-described basketball nut, who was a walk-on at Michigan State under Tom Izzo, didn't waste any time shaking up the NBA. Phoenix has never won an NBA championship. The Suns made the NBA Finals 2 seasons ago, but lost to the Milwaukee Bucks in 6 games. They also played in the finals in 1976 and 1993. The Suns have had several injuries this season, but played better in recent weeks and look like contenders again. They jumped to 5th in the Western Conference with a 30-26 record. Booker, groin, and Paul Hip have both recently returned. Next news. When medical personnel rushed onto the field to save Damar Hamlin's life after the Buffalo Bills' defensive back collapsed during a game last month in Cincinnati, many people witnessed the horrifying scene, did the only thing they could to help. They prayed. Players and coaches from both teams took a knee, held hands, and through tear-filled eyes called on God to heal their fallen brothers. Fans inside the stadium and millions of viewers watched at home did the same, sharing and posting their prayers on social media. In a moment of fear and desperation, prayer took center stage in the NFL. Over the next few days, Pray for Damar hashtag was trending. Hamlin's family and friends requested more prayers while he was hospitalized and after his release. Faith was back at the forefront in the NFL for the first time since praying on the field was referred to as Tebowing. In quotes, they were impacted because they were seeing themselves, Philadelphia Eagles chaplain Ted Winsley told the Associated Press. They were smacked in the face with the reality of what this is. Damar was in that situation, but that could be me. They were feeling for him, but it reminded them that this is life or death. And then it also causes you to come to grips with the fact that there is someone greater than me I have to trust in quotes. This has been the Daily Global News Update of Millennium News TV 24/7. Thank you so much for watching. Please log in to get the latest news on all of our social networking sites. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Also TikTok. On TikTok, we are Millennium News 24. Also, our YouTube channel is News Channel M24. Viewers now on both network broadcasting, Android and iOS devices, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, also all smart TV platforms. Please enjoy our entertainment, our latest news, views, and editorials, our Millennium TV apps, Millennium TV USA Android, Millennium News Google, www.millenniumtv24.com. Please stay with Millennium News 24. Thank you. God bless you wherever you are. Peace.